What's up, everybody? This is the PlayStation Lifestyle Underground Podcast. We are an unofficial podcast of PlayStationLifestyle.net. I'm Hugo Stiglitz. You can find me on PSN as Hugo Stiglitz _420 and Xbox Live as THNK4URSELF. And we're actually just doing a two-man show today. You want to say what's up, Ryan?
Yep. What's up? My name is Brian Mashallah. You can find me on the comments and forums as Brian Mashallah and on PSN, Nintendo Network, and some other random places where I guess noobs play games as Cloudstripe768. Talking about you PC players.
Yep. Those peasants. But, so yeah, lately, I've been obviously playing a lot of Gran Turismo Sport. It came out a couple days ago, and I'm fully addicted to it, like usual with every brand new Gran Turismo. Really like it. They've improved a bunch of stuff over the past GTs, and it's easily the most polished GT they've ever made. Um, and I'm looking forward to updates as well because I think it could only be enhanced further by adding content and stuff like that. But at the moment, I
But
have
it's online only.
it's not,
There's no
but
single player.
it is kind like there is some things that should not be online only that are, but it's definitely not online only. Like the arcade mode, which is available offline, is actually excellent. And as long as you've made progress while online, because that's really the only way you can, unfortunately, you will have all the tracks you've unlocked and all the cars, and you can have a ton of fun just messing around with arcade mode. But stuff that really should be unlocked, like the photo mode. Well, by that I mean the escapes mode, not the actual like in-race photo mode. You do still have that, and then the campaign. Like neither of those, there's really no reason for those to be online only. I mean, in the campaign mode, it does have leaderboards between you and your friends and the whole world, which is actually a pretty cool feature because then you can get competitive with your friends and try to be number one. In addition to just getting the gold medal for each mission and challenge. But so that's always nice to have. But it doesn't need to be online. So it's a strange move by them. I hope that they patch that out because I'm sure I'm not the only person unhappy about it. Um, like I can only imagine someone that doesn't have internet connection trying to buy the game and play it. And it's like I can't imagine people doing that these days, just with the way there's every video game has day one patches and all sorts of content added on after. But I suppose it's possible there could be those people out there. And yeah, they're in for a rude awakening. It's basically the arcade disc of the old GTs that were two discs, pretty much when you're offline. And if you have no online connection, it's basically like that, and also not having a memory card.
Hmm.
So yeah, not fun for those people. But luckily, I do have internet 99% of the time. The servers are up 99% of the time. So that 1% of the time, limited to arcade mode. But there is, like, you do still keep your car collection, which is definitely much better than what it was at midnight when the game unlocked, where I had to wait for the patch to download, and I literally couldn't do anything but just the basic arcade mode with the 10 cars that they have that you can rent, and then the 3 tracks that you have that you can use. That's probably maybe the worst thing about anyone that doesn't have an internet connection playing it. But I've been playing other stuff too. Well, not since GT came out, really. Other than on Vita, I have been playing the Ratchet and Clank collection, and I'm pretty impressed with it. Like, it's definitely a much better port than the Jack and Daxter collection on Vita, but also I just think it's a better game, to be honest. Like, I have more fun with it. It's not as brutally difficult as Jack and Daxter is, and it's just fun. And, like, I am recognizing a lot of stuff because I played the Ratchet and Clank remake, and they definitely have changed stuff, but it is still very much the same game. It's just like a few little things that they've changed, and like gameplay wise, they made it more of a shooter and stuff, and also like some story wise stuff, and obviously graphics. But yeah, it's actually very fun, and I can see why people have always loved the series. Also, I played through Amnesia: The Dark Descent from start to finish. I also played through the Order 1886, as like I was planning on doing like some Halloween, like some horror games this month for Halloween month, but then Gran Turismo kind of got in the way, and also Resident Evil 5. But before that, Evil Within 2, that came out last Friday. Although I got it 2 days early on Wednesday, so I played as much of that as I could before GT came out. But it's a very long game, much like the first one. I've already put, I think, 15 hours in, and I'm only on chapter 10, and there's 17 of them. So, yeah, I'm definitely gonna get back to that because I've been missing it. But it's just, yeah, GT is basically taking over my life right now. And also, I have been playing a little bit of Rocket League because they put out the Fast and Furious DLC for that, which comes with the Skyline and Charger, which is very cool. And the Skyline is actually a good car for Rocket League, aside from being a Skyline, which is it's the first real car in Rocket League. I mean, yeah, in Rocket League, other than the Charger, which also came out at the same time. So definitely happy about that. Need to get back into that game, but that is it for me. Well, and also I've been playing a little bit of Assetto Corsa, as always. But I'm done,
Okay.
finally. 5 minutes later.
That's fine. Um, for me, I have not been playing too much. I had an itch to play Shadow of War, so I rented that.
Hmm.
I have every intention of buying it at some point, but for now, I just wanted to rent it because I wanted to play it. So I did a bunch of that over the weekend. Um, but after our podcast last week, mine and Jordash was talking about Final Fantasies on PlayStation 2. I didn't finish it when it first came out, so I kind of went back to and have been playing Final Fantasy 12, that remake
Hmm.
on PS4 that came out earlier this year. And
Interesting.
and then there's a little tie-in in Final Fantasy 14 to 12 and Final Fantasy Tactics from way back when on PS2, and I've been playing a bunch of that as well. And still lots of Stardew Valley on Switch.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Shadow of War because I actually this week had been listening to the Hobbit audiobook, and that actually got me interested in Lord of the Rings stuff again. So I kind of watched the movies in the background while I was doing stuff, and also played a little bit of Lego The Hobbit, which is not the best one because it actually was supposed to have a DLC for the third movie, and they cut it out. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's been a while since I've even touched a Lego game, and I was surprised that the graphics were as good as they were. I don't remember
Yeah,
them being that nice, but I think it looks very pretty. And that's another one that I have on PC that I haven't touched in a long time is the Lord of the Rings Lego game, which I absolutely want to play because that's the entire saga right there. Although there is stuff cut out, obviously, but
yeah.
still, that's an interesting one to play.
I have a small problem with the older Lego games. I love the Lego games. I've played a lot of them.
Hmm.
And well, despite the fact that they're all basically the exact same game, just with a different skin every time, which I'm okay with. I'm totally okay with. That doesn't bother me in the slightest bit. But the older ones, for example, like Lord of the Rings and uh, Harry Potter, they're not voiced, and I know it's not that big of a deal, but for some reason, after playing the voiced ones, it just kind of annoys me a little bit.
Hmm.
I just want them to be voiced.
You mean the characters don't have their own voices in game?
Because I think the Lord of the Rings one is old enough where the characters don't talk; they just kind of grunt and make noises.
You might be right.
It's the newer games where they're voiced, and then some of the newest games take that are based on movies take the audio right from the movies.
Yeah, I know in the cutscenes and then some certain in-game scenes, they definitely use movie dialogue, but then they'll also have additional dialogue done by like an impressionist or something. And I can't remember if the Lord of the Ring one does or not. It's been a very long time since I played it, but I know the Hobbit one at least does like have actual voice actors in it too.
Okay.
'Cause I played that recently.
It's new-ish enough. I think Batman 2 or Lego Batman 2 was the first to start having voiced actors, and that helped a lot. Everything before that was just grunts and stuff like that. And it's not the end
Hmm.
of the world, but it's a little annoying
Yeah.
to like playing a PlayStation 4 game and then trying to go back and play a PlayStation 2 game. It's hard because it's just it's not as nice, it's not as convenient, it's not as good in most cases, that sort of thing. So
Yeah. Like they've improved virtually everything over PS2 at this point. So controls, not just graphics, just everything. So for the most part.
yeah,
But yeah. So our news story this week is unfortunately Visceral, which is owned by EA, the bastards, has been closed,
was
unfortunately,
owned by
and
EA.
Amy Hennig's Star Wars game has also been canceled. For did they give a reason, or is it just like they just closed it like the bunch of morons that they are?
It's They haven't canceled the game. They are closing Visceral and moving the assets of the project over to a different studio. So
Jesus.
whatever bullshit speak, corporate speak you want to interpret that for. I mean, a lot of people have interpreted it a million different ways. Um, speculating a million different things. I don't, no one really knows or no one out here in the public really knows what's going on or what happened with that. But, you know, whatever Amy Hennig was working on is probably no more, and that studio's gone. Like
So annoying.
so many other EA studios. EA's the place studios go to die, after all.
Yeah,
It's the video game elephant graveyard.
it's just ridiculous, and it's like EA has done a lot of screwed up things, like when it comes to Visceral, like making them do Battlefield Hardline, or making them basically ruin Dead Space 3. They also did their best to make them ruin even Dead Space 1. Like, Dead Space 3 is what EA wanted all along for the Dead Space series, and they ran out of time on Dead Space 1 to add in a multiplayer component, so it ended up being just single player, and people loved it. It's one of the most beloved horror games ever. Same with the second one, although it did add a multiplayer component to it. But EA had always wanted from the start co-op mode. That's what they made them do with Dead Space 3, and it pretty much killed Dead Space 3 to fans of the series, at least. There are some like casual gamers that liked it just for what it was. Maybe coming from Resident Evil 5, which is not a scary game whatsoever. Going to Dead Space 3 is like, maybe familiar territory, and it's not a terrible game in its own right. It's just that it's not Dead Space, and it didn't sell like 6 million copies, so they pretty much decided to kill the series, because that's what EA does. But yeah, it's definitely unfortunate. I hate seeing studios get closed, especially when it's talented as Visceral, because they've done some great work in the past, obviously. And yeah, but EA is they're pretty much a lot like Activision and Ubisoft, where it's just about the money now, and which is why I continue to appreciate Bethesda and Sony, because it's not just about the money. They also realize that it's important to also make great games for gamers like us that play everything, because we are the ones that spend the most money on video games. It's not the people who only play one or two types of games. It's not the people who play Call of Duty all year round or Destiny all year round. It's people like us that buy multiple games multiple times a year that are putting the most money back into the industry, and like it's that type of game that we love. So that's what Bethesda and Sony are trying to provide. EA is only going after the casual gamer, make the most possible money per game, and screw actually making great games. Let's just make ones that make money, and that's pretty much what they've turned into, unfortunately. And they've kind of been that way for a while, but they would still have stuff in between there that would be good. But that's just not the case anymore. Like, they're all about go big or go home. I mean, it's like if something doesn't sell 5 million copies, it's a failure to them, and that's just ridiculous. Like,
Yeah, they've been getting. I mean, what I said earlier about EA being the place studios go to die is kind of, they're kind of
it's true.
notorious for buying studios and then closing them. Um, Blue Frog is one. Uh, I'm my mind's a blank at the moment, but between Blue Frog, you have the SimCity Maxim, or the SimCity developer Maxim, when they made the newest SimCity, the one that was online, and just flopped miserably because the studio or servers
Oh yeah.
broke. Yep. I mean,
Hmm.
the second that SimCity released, it was basically game over for Maxim. Uh,
I mean, it kind of deserved to fail, what being always online.
well, sort of, but no, I don't think any real um, studio deserves to fail. But aside from,
Well, I just mean the game, because I doubt that was even the studio's decision.
all right, yeah, probably. But aside from,
And the funny thing is it failed because of that. Yet
yeah,
EA closes the studio as if it was their fault when they're the ones who decided to make it always online. So instead of learning a lesson that gamers don't like always online games because stuff like that can happen, they say, "Oh no, we're closing the studio down. Cut our losses." Like, it's just a perfect example of them not understanding how to make great games anymore. I don't think
yeah,
they even want to. I think they just want to make money and they don't care about making great games, which, like, in the long run, making great games produces more gamers and therefore more wealth for them. Because if every publisher was like EA, there would be much less variety in the games that people will buy each year, and also much less gamers. I think gamers like us are a huge market, and to exclude us would be a mistake. So that's why I think it's very important to not only make games that make money, but to make games that people love, want to play, and are good. Like, I think it just contributes to your overall end game when you do that, and that's something that EA is not doing, in my opinion.
and they haven't done or they've been struggling with for a long time. I could say. I mean,
Hmm.
I had to look it up because like I said, I was just completely blanking. But some of the other studios that they've closed down, Pandemic, who, if you're unfamiliar with, made the Mercenaries games and the previous Star Wars Battlefront games, which were
Oh
beloved.
yeah.
They closed them down. Black Box, who made some of the earlier Need for Speed and the Skate games. People loved Skate, especially after Tony Hawk went off the rails.
Yeah. Skate was
Uh,
wicked popular, yeah, and like people are still asking for it, so I'm surprised that they've. Well, yeah, because they closed the studio down because they're dumb.
yeah,
And I also
and
wonder if they also closed down Bizarre Creations. I forget who closed that studio down, but they made PGR4 and a bunch of other really popular racing games, and um, I think it was EA, but I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, no, you're right. Like, it is like a place that studios go to die. It seems like. I mean,
yeah,
it's like a death sentence. Like, unless you happen to hit it big, like Dice, but it's like even then, if like they start having a couple failures, they're screwed. But
Dice also has the added benefit of their engine that is
yeah,
that runs every single EA game
EA
now.
game, yeah. Not to mention, I mean, they tend to get like big properties like Star Wars and I mean Battlefield. They made it themselves, but at this point, it's a big IP. Um, and it's like they also made Mirror's Edge Catalyst, which is, as far as I know, is a failure sales wise, unfortunately. But it's Dice, so it's not like they're gonna get closed down because of that. But it's like, so it's kind of even like a shock that they even let them make that game. You know what I mean? Because the first one was not a smash hit by any means. Like it was actually, even the critics didn't like it. It was just like it had a cult following, and a lot of people loved it. So they decided to make another one, which was surprising to me, and I was always very thankful. And I'm also thankful for how it turned out. I loved it. I mean, there are a couple stupid things as far as like the upgrade system and stuff, like typical RPG elements, like but that's really the only negative in that game for me. Like, and that's the one that reviewers love to lambast for the game. But otherwise, it's a fantastic game, gameplay wise. I thought that open world setting was better. The story was, I mean, it was kind of a rehash of the first one, but I thought it was improved. The cutscenes were improved, obviously, and I loved the game overall. It failed badly sales wise, though. So it's like, that it's lucky that it's Dice that did that and not some other developer, because they would have got close too.
Yeah, probably.
But yep, it sucks. I hate seeing great studios like Visceral get closed down. I mean, especially like when they bring on Amy Hennig and some other like talented people. I think the. Oh wait, no, I'm thinking of something else. Sorry. I was thinking of the writer from Spec Ops: The Line. Now he's doing Battlefront 2,
Yep.
which to me by no means guarantees that it's going to be a good story. I just hope it does. So we'll see. That's going to be one that I'll probably rent it first, buy later. Like it's the
Yeah.
beta. I thought it was improved over the first one, but it wasn't like it isn't completely fixed and to the point where I'd be excited to play it. So
It's not a $60 purchase for me.
yeah, same here. Like it's more like a 20 or below probably. Um,
Yeah. I'm just really curious what happened because they made such a big deal. When Amy Hennig left, I mean, I don't want to say that Naughty Dog necessarily did anything bad, but I mean, there was always this kind of air about the whole situation of her being the wronged party and like EA saving her. Well, that's the impression that I got at least. So there was such a big deal about this, and her coming on, and the rumors that it was probably going to be some kind of Uncharted-like linear narrative game just in the Star Wars universe I mean, I thought had people really excited. I was pretty excited to see something like that.
yeah. And remember,
Like,
like we were saying, like they have to show that at E3 this year, and then there was nothing, and it's like, I mean, we probably could have seen then that it was a bad sign.
I, you know, if it was not Visceral and Amy Hennig doing a Star Wars game, I would have, or with the help of Jade Raymond and whatever
Oh
studio
yeah,
she's
her
on
too.
now. Yeah, if all of that wasn't behind the game, then I would have assumed that it was in trouble if we saw nothing, or since we saw nothing. But all those
Yeah,
things led me to believe that it was still all right. But I don't know. I guess it wasn't.
yeah. Who knows?
Just love to be a fly on that wall.
Yeah. Also, the Uncharted situation. I mean, like the inside information that came out about that kind of made Amy Hennig look good. If anything, I thought like that she did nothing wrong. Really, it's just like um, Neil and Bruce had a different vision for Uncharted 4, and the studio heads went with that vision instead. That's what it sounded like to me, at least. Like it wasn't like anything wrong with what Amy had done, but
Oh
I don't
yeah, I
know.
know. Just her leaving the studio kind of made her out to be a sympathetic figure.
Yeah,
Is what I was trying to say.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
So there's a lot of goodwill and clout behind her for Star Wars.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, not to mention, I mean, she does have a pedigree of making great third-person linear games, and the idea of her doing that for Star Wars could be really, really cool. And yeah, but EA decided to can it for whatever reason. Um, which has interestingly had like some people like Corey Barlog, who's directing God of War. That's coming out next year. He also directed God of War 2 and some other stuff. But he came out and said that like he is glad that God of War is linear. He hates the idea of linear being used in a negative light, which it sometimes is. It really drives me nuts too. I don't know how people can say that as a negative, because it's like it's almost a fact that linear means the developer has way more control over the game, over the narrative, over the pacing, over what the player will see and do. And because of that, I feel like they can produce just much more powerful games that way, and more enjoyable games to me, and higher quality. Some people love the whole open world thing, but I'd personally rather play like people love to talk about replayability. I'd rather play a straight up linear game 2 or 3 times rather than play an open world game twice. Like, like it, or even once half the time. Like open world games, it's like sometimes they feel like you're just going through the motions and then it's over, and it's like they're fun because there's a nice change of pace that you can kind of just get lost in the world. But like I would never prefer that type of game. I'd never have, never will. And in fact, my favorite open world games are the ones that are the least open world ish. The ones that are most linear and story based, like Assassin's Creed 2 or Mafia or Infamous. Horizon Zero Dawn, not so much, because that is very much an open world game. But the reason I love it so much is because it does deliver you the same quality story that you would see in a linear game for the most part. But
I don't understand why. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I have 1.5 million open world games that I've played this year, and honestly, not too many that I've finished, just because they're so. I mean, one, I believe we've talked about it not too long ago in a podcast, but I'm just kind of over open world games right now, and they just keep coming, which is why I wanted to rent Shadow of War and not buy it, since it's another open world game, and I just don't want that right now. I wanted to play a little bit, but I didn't want to get too into it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's equally as stupid as saying linear is a bad thing as saying indies is a bad thing. It's just, I don't believe people who say these things are real gamers when they pick and choose what they consider to be a game and what isn't. Everything's a game, whether you like it or not. I mean, unless it's
also the way they tie value
game
to the length of playtime. Like, that's another thing I don't understand. Or like linear games aren't worth the same price, and I just feel the complete opposite. Like I'd rather have a 6-hour amazing experience than a 20-hour mediocre one. And especially like people like us that are very busy and have many games to play. Sometimes less is more, and like we just don't have time to waste a ton of time. So having a game be short and just awesome is usually an improvement over anything else. So it's a strange thing, but it exists out there. So but now let's finally get into our topic this week. Since Ryan isn't here, and he typically does not buy games day one. He usually waits till they're at a discount. And me and Brian are not that way. There's quite often that we have to buy stuff day one just because we cannot wait. So we figured we would not only discuss the games that we've bought day one this year, but also why we decide to do that and why we can't wait. And I don't know if we want to go chronological, but I guess I'll start with the first game I bought this year on day one. It was Horizon. And as for why I bought that one, I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, it's like one of the most anticipated games of this generation. But in general, I buy games day one out of impatience, but also because I want to support the product that is being put out. And I would definitely say that about Evil Within, because Evil Within, like if it was many other games that don't really need my support as far as like money, I probably would have waited to buy it because I knew that I wouldn't have time to complete it before Gran Turismo came out. So I, knew I could have probably waited, but I decided to buy it day one because I want more games like this. I want to, like kind of reward Bethesda for putting their faith in a game like this, and so that was part of the reason why I bought it day one, aside from the fact that I couldn't wait to play it because I only just played The Evil Within 1 and its DLC a couple months ago and absolutely loved it. So those are basically the two main reasons that I buy games day one, aside from just general impatience, like I said. And yeah, I mean, there are certain games where it's like I'm just dying to play. Like Wolfenstein coming out soon is one of them. Gran Turismo Sport, obviously. But the very first game I bought day one this year was Horizon. And I think you have quite a bit more than that as far as games you bought day one this year. But yeah, if you want, you can rattle off a few of yours.
Sure. I mean, Horizon was I'm pretty sure it's my first day one purchase of the year
Didn't
as
Neo
well.
come out before it, or did you wait to get that?
I waited to get it. I did not get that day
Oh,
one.
okay.
I got it near day one, but I wasn't honestly entirely sure about it, given my history with those types of games.
hmm
But yeah, I'm not really counting it because I didn't play it day one. I played it. Well, I think I bought it within the first week. So if you want to count it, then sure. But I mean, the first game that I actually bought day one, pre-ordered everything, was Horizon as well.
Awesome. Yeah, and like it's definitely one that was worth it, I'd say.
Oh yeah,
It's a fantastic game and gives you plenty of your money's worth, which some people seem to be obsessed with, like we were saying earlier. But yeah, shortly after that, though, there were quite a few more games that came out for you that I'm sure you also got day one.
well,
Like
the biggest one,
Zelda.
I got a whole console day one to be able to play a game day one, even though I could have played it on a console that I already owned. I
Yep.
regret absolutely nothing because I love my Switch, but
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
yep, I bought Zelda day one, and it was. I regret absolutely nothing. It's, you know, spoiler alert for when we do our Game of the Year podcast. It's going to be high on the list of my Game of the Years this year.
It's number one, right?
Um,
I mean, it has to be.
I haven't talked about any game nearly as much as I've talked about Zelda constantly. So yeah, spoiler: Zelda's my Game of the Year,
Yeah, it has to be.
and you know, for good reason. And I've loved. I can get. We'll get into it during that podcast, but yeah, it was absolutely worth it, and I regret nothing. I don't regret spending the extra. I think I got my edition for 130 or
Oh,
110
damn.
or 120
Yeah.
dollars. I got the nicer edition with the Master Sword statue
Oh,
because
sweet.
again, I I love it's my favorite series of all time. I love the kind of games that Nintendo tends to put out, and I want to support Nintendo, and I do. I mean, I stayed up until 4 in the morning when the Switch was announced to get my Switch pre-order and the pre-order for the nice Zelda edition, which sold out instantly and was eBaying for up to $400. I could have sold my edition of the Zelda Collector's Edition and paid off my Switch, but I didn't,
Oh,
and I
damn.
have absolutely no regrets about that because to me it was I want to support that. I mean, I love my statue, and I love all my little tchotchkes in my soundtrack, but I mean,
Yeah,
just the
like I
carrying
could
case
have,
was a
I
great
could have made a profit on
investment.
the Last Guardian statue as well, or just the collector's edition in general. But like, I was like, nah, I just want it. So,
Yeah,
and the Zelda one's worth even more. So, yeah, but it's like it's such a like special game to you that yeah, no, I would have done the same thing. Um,
absolutely. And I mean, it kind of came along with a lot of added costs too. Obviously, wanting a better controller than the Joy-Con and the little grip thing, and I mean, this was totally unnecessary. But if you're an amiibo hunter of any kind, then it was absolutely necessary. I got all the Zelda amiibo associated with Breath of the Wild, which there were 5 of them at the time. There's another 4 coming out in a couple weeks here.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And if you don't get them day one with Zelda amiibo, then they're gone. And the scalpers will charge you. I don't.
Tons, I'm sure.
Most of my Zelda amiibo are worth about triple the price that I paid for them because I played from all retail. So that was unnecessary, but I wanted it too. And also with the season pass for Zelda, which I was the most hesitant about getting, not because I wasn't pretty confident in the quality of what I was going to be getting out of the season pass, but just because Zelda and season passes is still kind of a weird combination for me. But after playing, even going, totally sight unseen and not knowing what was in the season pass, I have no problems with that extra $20, especially since the first DLC was actually really, really fun and enjoyable.
Yeah. Speaking of collector's editions, I actually have the collector's edition for Wolfenstein 2 pre-ordered, so I will be having that
Nice.
BJ Blazkowicz statue to hang out with my Trico statue. They'd make a pretty kick-ass team. But so yeah, back to the games I bought day one. Oh wait, did you explain like why you decided to buy games day one? Like I know you explained why you bought Zelda, but in general.
Um, I mean, my opinions pretty much mirror yours. I enjoy supporting developers
Yep.
and the products that they do. I mean, I love Uncharted, so you better believe that I will be buying and paying for and pre-ordering Uncharted games whenever I have the ability to.
Mhm.
I mean, you were a little cold on the Lost Legacy and that whole turning into an expansion versus
Yeah. Just the way
a
they handled
DLC.
the price change and stuff. And I mean, and I ended up loving the game, but and I did buy it day one, although I said I wasn't going to because I was just so pissed. But it's Uncharted, man. Like I couldn't resist. You know
Yeah,
what I
and I
mean?
mean, despite I never had those problems, but even despite that, like you said, it was Uncharted, and I'll buy Naughty Dog right away because they're a fantastic developer
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
with impeccable quality in their games. So I assume that when I buy one of their games, it's going to come out working near perfectly, and it's going to be just a fantastic game.
Yep. So yeah. What one game early this year that I didn't buy day one, just because was trying to save money at the time, was a Resident Evil 7. I did buy it a few months later and loved it, but that was one I was planning on and just decided not to. But the next game I bought after Horizon was on day one was Outlast 2, which I did really really like, although there were some things with the story that I was a little disappointed in. But it is an Outlast game, so I'm like starting to wonder if that sort of thing really even matters. like, but it wasn't a fantastic experience otherwise. And next one after that was Rhyme, which I believe you also played. Now that game I actually played in one sitting. Um, took a little more than 5 hours, and I was streaming and stuff. But like yeah, like that was another one I really really liked. Um, maybe not as much as some people, but it was definitely an excellent game. And the next game I bought after that on day one was What Remains of Edith Finch, which is I'm glad I bought it, although it was only a 2-hour game for $20. It I don't even like to call it a walking simulator because of some of the negative connotations that come along with that. For at least for some people, like some people like walking sims, some people hear that and like, oh, I'd hate that game, I'd never play it. so I don't even like to call it that because of how much I like it within that genre and how much faster paced it is than most games in that genre and how little just like downtime there is. Like there's lots of different gameplay mechanics in between each story. The stories themselves are really cool and funny and just interesting, and I love it. It's one of my favorite walking simulators, if not number one. I've never really thought about what my favorite one is, but it's absolutely up there. So like that one, I was very impressed with and happy with, and I know it reviewed well, so I wasn't the only one. But yeah, next after that was the Wipeout Omega Collection, which I absolutely love. They did a fantastic job on it. It's excellent, three excellent games in one disc, and that one I also got day one because that was a $40 game, which was cool. But that brings me up to summer. So how about you? What were the other games you bought on day one this year?
Rounding out my early winter and spring, I bought Tales of Berseria,
Mm-hmm.
which I absolutely love the Tales series and pretty much buy them day one all the time, just because you have your Final Fantasies and your Witchers and stuff like that, but there's just something a little more. I don't want to say simple as in a negative way, but just kind of simple in a way of it harkens back to old JRPGs from like the PlayStation 1 and 2 era. That DNA is still alive and well in the Tales series, and I just appreciate and enjoy that. So, I buy and support those games all the time, even if I don't like them all necessarily. I don't like Zestiria, for example, all that much, but Berseria I was a big fan of. Um, and speaking of games that harken back to old JRPG, um, the Kingdom Hearts collection came out with 1 and 2 and Birth by Sleep and some little movies for the 3DS games and the DS game and whatever. So the large collection of 6 Kingdom Hearts games came out. I bought that day one because, I mean, it's Kingdom Hearts. I love Kingdom Hearts. I'll play Kingdom Hearts all day and night. Not really, I'll get bored with it, but I I really love the series, so of course I bought it. And the value of the collection is pretty impressive too. It's
That's
4
good.
games that you can actually play for $60.
Hmm.
So, value wise alone, it was a great buy, but absolutely love them anyways. Um, I also bought Near day one, Near Automata, and
Yep.
again for similar reasons that I described earlier. It's a very niche game. I played the original Nier. I played some Drakengard's. I like what Yoko Taro does, the director. So of course I wanted to support him and the games he makes, and hopefully we get more. And the Nier sales kind of makes me excited that it's a possibility, which is pretty surprising. Um, and again, uh, I bought Persona 5 day one. I bought the little collector's edition of it day one because I love what Atlas does, and I love again it's similar to how I view Tales of. The JRPGs they make kind of remind me of older JRPGs that are maybe not so fancy like Final Fantasies are. Not that Final Fantasy is bad at any or anything like that, but they're a simpler kind of older school RPG that I appreciate and always have good stories. So of course I was going to support them day one as well, especially with the more expensive edition, which I love. I actually use. You get a bunch of like statues and random tchotchke and stuff like that. with collector's editions that you don't really use. I mean, statues you couldn't display, but with the Zelda one, I got a Switch carrying case that I use constantly, and with Persona 5, I got a little like messenger bag type of thing that I use constantly too. So
Hmm.
that was a good addition. And I don't exactly remember when it came out, but I bought Prey Day one. Not necessarily
Yeah,
because, I mean, I don't.
I think that was
I'm,
early
I'm a,
May.
yeah, I guess late spring. So I don't necessarily want to say that I'm all in on Bethesda like you are. I don't mind them. I'm a little wishy-washy on them because they make good games, but some of the, I'm still not over Skyrim on PS3 at the same time. So, but
Yeah, although they have kind of turned that around for this generation.
yep, and
Like Fallout was actually quite a bit better on PS4 than Xbox One, and I think the same with the Skyrim collection or remaster, whatever.
right, yeah, probably. But Prey, I wanted to get one. My wife and son went away for like a week and a half on vacation, so I was bored as shit by myself in the house for a week. But
Yeah.
also, I do I like I do like Arcane with Dishonored. I really love the Dishonored games, so they made Prey, and I wanted to support them for that. And it was good. It was a good game. It was, even though it was kind of horrorish, which is not my cup of tea usually, that kind of turned around towards the end and became less so. And yeah, I liked it. It's a good game. I regret nothing buying it day one.
Yeah, that was one I was considering, and then just didn't. I was like trying to save money and stuff again, but so the next game I did buy after Wipeout was Hellblade, which was early August, and I absolutely loved that game. Like I am totally glad that I bought that day one and supported the developers as much as possible because I loved it. Like it was such a good game in a number of ways, and also like I replayed it, liked it even better the second time, and it's just a fantastic game. A lot of it seems like a lot of people loved it too, and I hopefully we see more games like that as far as like just studios basically independently publishing something but making it AAA quality. And although it did take them a super long time to make the thing, it took 4 years, I believe, and the quality of it is like pretty much perfect. But yeah, no, that is quite a bit of a long wait. But yeah, Ninja Theory is definitely awesome developer from just from that game alone. But also like I've played a little bit of Enslaved, and like they seem to know what they're doing, especially when it comes to melee combat. But the storytelling was very impressive in this game, and just like some of the themes that they tackled, it's an amazing experience, and I was really happy with it. And then the next one after that is the one we mentioned before, which is Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. Now it was contentious for me whether or not I was going to get it day one, but ultimately, like I said, it's Uncharted. Had to buy it, and I played it right away, and really loved it. Like it had some of the things that I wanted from Uncharted 4, which was more gunfights and more set pieces, and that's pretty much exactly what it had. Also more puzzle hunting, or puzzles in general and stuff like that. It had more of that, which is another thing I wanted more of from Uncharted 4, and it delivered it. So to me, it was like a very good addition onto Uncharted 4. And like some people complain that it didn't reinvent the wheel, but it wasn't supposed to. Like, I mean, it was supposed to just be an expansion DLC type thing for Uncharted, and like they did make it into a standalone. So, but like I don't know why people were expecting it to be like a full-on new sequel. Like it was never supposed to be that. It was supposed to just be an add-on. So like I never understood that. And as far as add-ons go, I loved it. Like I thought it was fantastic. It was great as a game in its own right. And
Hmm.
there were some areas it wasn't as strong as the main series, but it was also just as strong, if not stronger, in some other areas. So I loved it. I was very happy with it. And then we're getting more into recent stuff. The next game I bought day one after that was F1 2017, and I was very hesitant to buy this for a number of reasons. First of all, because like I hadn't even got through a full season on 2015 yet, and like I did like that game, but it was like another one where I thought could have been better driving wise. But like I kind of got suckered into buying this one because of the classic cars and the improvements to the career mode, and I don't regret it one bit because it is absolutely better than what I expected. It's the best F1 game Codemasters has ever made, hands down. It's also maybe the best F1 game ever made, period. Like it's really that good. Everything is well done. They improved the actual gameplay, the driving, and especially the force feedback on the steering wheel, which is one of the main things I wanted them to improve. They improved it by a lot. Like it's actually very very good now, and it's a joy to drive. I had a ton of fun so far with each one of the races, and one downside was that the graphics were actually downgraded compared to 2015, which was kind of odd. It was the same story for 2016, and like you do get used to it after you play it for a while, but that was kind of a surprise. Like I was expecting it to look as polished and just amazing as 2015, and it looks a little more rough around the edges, which is I'm not sure why. But also it has classic cars, F1 cars, which is something which is like the main thing that suckered me into buying it. In addition to the fact that I had decided not to get Project Cars 2 on day one because it was releasing too close to Gran Turismo Sport, and I would never have enough time to play it. Um, and hell, I've barely had enough time to play F1 2017 either. So it's like it's crunch time for me as far as gaming wise. Like, and it's been a crazy month because of all the games that are coming out, and yeah, I'll just bring it up to current and basically finish out the year. Even within two, like I mentioned, that was the next game I bought on day one. And so far, I really like it, although I'm not convinced at the move to open world. The first one was very much linear. This one is much more open, which in some ways is very cool, but in other ways it's not. I feel like it's not as focused, and it doesn't have as much action as the first one. But I haven't finished it either, so we'll see where it goes. But next one after that is Gran Turismo Sport, which I've mentioned multiple times, and I love it so far. It was always a game that I was going to get day one, but I was, especially when they did that demo last week to let people try out the game, I was just super impressed, and like especially compared to the closed beta, which was a few months ago, and it was excellent, but it only included the online stuff, so it didn't really give me a full idea of what was going on with the game. And actually, like the AI racing, because they did briefly let you use arcade mode in the closed beta, and the AI was not good. Like it was pretty much the same as GT6. Completely different story now. Like, in even from the demo last week to the full release, the AI has been improved a ton. Like, it's weird. But, like, they made it much, much faster. The AI will now make passes more often. Like, they'll make passes on each other. It's actually raceable AI, which is essential to any single-player racing game. Because that is what decides whether you have a fun race or just a kind of boring race. I mean, like where you're just driving around, which can be fun too, certainly. Like, I mean, time trials are still fun, but as far as like the offline racing, the AI is essential to it, and they've absolutely improved it way more than I expected over all of the past Gran Turismo games. So I'm very happy with it. And the next one and the final game I will be getting day one this year, as far as I know, I'm pretty sure Wolfenstein 2, which, like I said, I'm getting the collector's edition, and I cannot wait to play it. Like, I have not watched any trailers other than the original announcement trailer at E3, and just because I was sold right away, and I'm not gonna bother watching anything else. I know all I need to know, and I cannot wait to play it. Like it is just, I loved the first game. I have full faith in Machine Games to make another great game, but also I'm definitely happy as well that they've moved to ID Tech 6, and the graphics are totally improved and stuff, which is going to be nice. But also, like, some of the gameplay things that I did see in the trailer that I watched, that original one, was just more stuff that, like, I can't wait to play, and really hoping it delivers as I think it will. But either way, getting that day one, getting the collector's edition, can't wait to play right through it. So hopefully it comes in early next week. Like Evil Within. I will still make the podcast though, because I can take an hour out of playing it. It's not a big deal. Although I will probably want to make it a short one, just so I can get back to the game. But I'm taking next Thursday off just in case, like it does.
Didn't it come out on Friday?
Yeah, but like I said, like it might come in early, like the Evil Within did.
Oh, okay.
The Evil Within came in on Wednesday, so if that happens with Wolfenstein, like I'll probably be playing it all day, and it'll probably be a good thing to take a break at that point, instead of just playing 10 hours straight of one game, which I never do. But yeah, that is it for me for the year. There's not anything else I plan on buying on day one, although I know you got some more.
Uh, I got some more coming, and I got some more that I did by day one. Yep. Um, I don't exactly remember when it came out, but whenever Dragon Quest Heroes came out, I bought that day one. I think it might have been early spring, late summer, or late spring, early summer. I can't really remember, to be perfectly honest. But I've mentioned before that I love the Warriors games, the Musou games, Dynasty Warriors, stuff like that. So the spin-off ones associated with other franchises have all been, pretty excellent as well. Like Hyrule Warriors was, I really, really loved it on Wii U and 3DS. I got it for both because it was that enjoyable. I'm really, really excited for Fire Emblem Warriors, which is the same type of thing, but with obviously Fire Emblem characters coming out on Switch tomorrow.
Hmm.
Mine is coming in the mail. There's another day one purchase for me. Um, so yeah, Warriors games I'll buy all day and all night, day one, just because, there's something cathartic and soothing about murdering thousands of minions just for funsies. And with some of the spin-off ones, there's, stories associated with them too. So we haven't gotten a new Dragon Quest game on a console since Dragon Quest 8 on PS2. And Dragon Quest Heroes is basically that. It's a pretty solid and good JRPG. So that was, of course, and I love the first one. So of course I wanted to support it and get it day one. Um, I don't know if it entirely counts, but the Final Fantasy XIV expansion, because again, the story, while a continuation off of what came before, is also kind of separate from everything else. It's each expansion is kind of its own semi-contained story, but with a large overarching arc. But Stormblood was just so good and so fun, and I spent a lot of time, and I'm still playing it. I don't know if that technically counts with MMOs, since that's the goal of MMOs, is just for you to come back and play over and over and over again. But some MMOs like World of Warcraft Legion, I quit after a fairly short amount of time. I think Legion took a while, but still after 2 or 3 months I quit. Stormblood came out in June, and I'm still playing it. So,
Hmm.
so it's doing something right. Plus, it's arguably a lot better than World of Warcraft. Um, There are some games that I bought day one that I didn't necessarily need to, or I don't want to say want to, but I just had the ability to, and I had a lull in games at the time, and I had some extra cash. Agents of Mayhem I bought day one. I wasn't going to, but then I found some random some random cards associated with Final Fantasy VIII that I bought 15 years ago that ended up selling on eBay for like $270 or $260. So with that extra couple dollars, I paid off some games coming out and wanted to get Agents of Mayhem, and it was fun. I certainly could have waited and probably should have, but whatever. It was a fun 2 weeks that I played it. Knack 2 I bought day one, and by bought I mean got for free because Sony New Zealand made a mistake and put it on their PlayStation Store for free for about 5 hours. I don't know if you want to count that, but I got that one day one. Um, and from what I've played, it's fun.
Yeah, that's one I'm definitely gonna buy at some point, preferably soon, and Crash Bandicoot at some point as well. But I think I'll actually get Knack first.
Oh yeah. Um, I guess I did technically get Crash Bandicoot day one, but that's more of a wife purchase. I don't necessarily care too much, but she really wanted it, so we got it for her day one. Uh, let's see what else. Oh, I'm playing it right now. Still, I got Destiny 2 day one. You know, people. Destiny is a pretty contentious game. Some people really, really love it and enjoy it, and a lot of people don't, and have problems with the structure and some of the mechanics of it, present company included.
Yep.
Uh, but it's fine. It's an MMO, and I understand that I've been playing MMOs for the better part of 2 decades, so it's not that big of a deal for me. It's just more of the, I mean, maybe call it I don't necessarily know. It's a good thing that I'm used to it, but still, it's stuff that I'm accustomed to and just seems to be in every MMOs. Um, with some changes and stuff like that. I've called it an MMO or a light MMO for a while now, and it fits that description pretty well. It's
Hmm.
But I really enjoyed the first one, and I wanted to get the second one because I assumed I would enjoy it too, and I have. Um, I haven't played it just yet, but I mean, I haven't really played it much yet, but I got Danganronpa 3 day one because again, I love the Danganronpa series. I love the stories. I wanted to support that team and show them that hey, these types of games are are definitely something that people want, even though they're not Call of Duty shooters or you know something like that. And they're basically giant visual novels, and there's a place for that. I think in a lot of people's libraries, mine especially. You know, the Danganronpa games have amazing stories, so of course I wanted to support that game day one, even though I haven't gone around to it just yet. But I want to.
So
Same
visual
thing with
novels, though, that's interesting. I've never played one, but I'm semi interested, especially because it's on Vita.
yeah, yeah. I would get one of the older Danganronpa games. I would start with the first one
Yeah, yeah. I
and
don't know
see. I
if they
mean, it's
connect like directly, or whatever, but yeah, I was thinking of the first one first, because I usually like to go in chronological order in case they do connect directly, like Assassin's Creed used to.
1 and 2 are connected directly, and there is an anime that is kind of like the third game, or what kind of should be the third game. This of the, officially titled third Danganronpa game is not super connected. I don't think it's kind of like people call it a fresh start. So you could kind of jump in without playing the previous ones, but it's not encouraged to play the second one without playing the first one, for example. But
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
it's not quite a visual novel. There's still some gameplay, especially with the class trials and stuff like that. But it's I don't know how into visual novels you would actually be. Um,
Yeah.
if you want, you can get Steins Gate on Vita, which is a straight pure visual novel. You do nothing except press X and make a couple choices and press X some more, and that's the game. Danganronpa has some gameplay.
Yeah, I think having
Either way,
some gameplay would be good. I mean, it kind of the closest thing for me is like a Telltale game.
yeah, but even less gameplay.
I mean, but if the story's good,
Oh,
that
the
it might
the
be
Danganronpa
worth it.
stories are excellent. I can't recommend Danganronpa 1 enough. It's
Yeah,
really, really
actually,
enjoyable.
like now that I think of it, I guess the main problem would be the way that I play Vita games, which is usually not for very long at a time. That could be a problem. Although, yeah, I'll keep it in mind for it's like if I'm when I'm going to like Florida again or going on a long trip, because that could be a time where it would be good. Because that was actually what I saved The Wolf Among Us for, and I loved the shit out of it. So, uh,
Well, you can
speaking of that, make another one, Telltale. Fucking bastards.
they are.
Oh, they confirmed that?
Yeah, Wolf Among Us season 2 is confirmed.
Sweet.
Uh,
Because they
but
ended it on a cliffhanger, so.
yeah, well, it's coming. Cliffhanger will be resolved, and a new one will open up.
Sweet.
Um, with Danganronpa, you can kind of split it up into shorter bursts as well, because
Oh,
you
that's
have
good.
you have your focused story moments and the class trials, which should be played in one go, even though some of them can be lengthy, but a lot of them aren't super long, so you can knock them out in a couple hours. Um, then there's certain story sections which kind of have moments where you can leave off on them. So it's definitely you could definitely play it in a more episodic nature like Telltale games. But again, I can't recommend Danganronpa enough, which is why I bought Danganronpa 3 because I love these games and they definitely need more love so we can get more of them because just some more focused story games
And it's like some
are
of the
great.
very few games that are still coming out on Vita. So that's awesome.
Yeah, um, absolutely. Let's see what else. I'm winding down a little bit here. I didn't pre-order it, but Final Fantasy IX I got day one when it was given away or not given away, but up on the PlayStation Store for TGS as a available now surprise kind of thing because it's one of my favorite games. PlayStation One games is one of my favorite Final Fantasy games. I mean, it's tied between four and it as my favorite Final Fantasy game. So I mean, it's special and I love it. And of course, I bought that day one. Uh, Warriors All Star, no, not War. I don't know what I'm talking about. Lacrimosa of Dana. That's a Ys game that I've been playing a lot of. It's again, it's a niche Japanese game, but I've loved the four previous ones that I've played, so I wanted to support it and can show the developers that there is a market for those types of games here. Even though my one purchase doesn't matter too much, I'm part of a community that definitely loves these games, and as much as I shit on PC gaming, I'm happy that a lot of these games are coming to PC so they can buy it and also show the developers, in this case Falcom, that there's absolutely a market for these games in the West, and they should keep translating them and making them and bringing them here.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep. Um,
Also,
Oh, and
sometimes it is cool to be able to play games at like higher resolution and frame rate and stuff. When although that's rare, depending on the rig you have. For me personally, but there is these sometimes occasions like Evil Within, where I had quite a bit of a better experience on PC than I did on console because it was a pretty bad port on console, unfortunately. Not the case for Evil Within 2, by the way. They improved things quite a bit, which is nice.
yeah, I have to assume that. No, that's a lie. I think some of the first Ys games were on PC way, way, way back in Japan. Yeah, like 20 odd years ago. So the last several have been on PSP, and that is
Oh,
also a game
that's
that came out
interesting.
on Vita. Um,
Like the
I mean,
thing with PC porting these days is because PS4 is x86 based, it's a lot easier than it's ever been before to make PC ports of console games. So that's why we see a lot more of it in both directions, which is I'd say it's a good thing. Although we like you said, we do make fun of PC gamers a lot. But it is certainly a market of gamers that is if it's easy enough to tap into, why not?
yeah, and I could shit on PC gaming all I want, but the most important thing is that people who play games can play the games that they want where they want.
Yep.
So sucks if you own an Xbox.
Poor Xbox.
Yep. Even Switch is getting your games.
Wait, which ones?
Uh, well, there's a lot of J- Japanese games and mostly Japanese games right now that are coming out on PS4 and Switch and not Xbox. Obviously,
Oh,
the market, Switch being a Japanese console with Nintendo and Japan loving Nintendo as, in general, except for the Wii U.
I mean, I just
So,
remembered another news story, but Phil Spencer said he wants Sony to explain why they won't do cross-platform play with games like Rocket League, which are cross-platform between Switch and Xbox, by the way. And I have to say, that's silly. Sony doesn't need to explain shit. Like, I
yeah.
just don't. It's not a super important feature for Sony because, it's not like they're struggling with those games to find, people online. I could definitely see doing it with something like Strike Vector EX, which doesn't have the hugest online community. But something like Rocket, like the only games that are trying to do it are ones that don't need it. In other words, so and I think wait yeah, the real reason it's silly for him to ask that is because it's Xbox's fault by expecting people to have Xbox Live accounts in order to do it. Isn't that what's going on with the Switch cross-platform play?
For Xbox-based games like Minecraft, I think
Oh,
I think Rocket League, for example, has internal servers that, and
yeah.
Fortnite and stuff like that have internal servers that do it. I
Okay.
believe.
All right.
I believe. I'm not entirely sure. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the case.
Yeah, you could be right. Like that does make sense. For sure. Like Rocket League on PS4. I know like the cross-platform play with PC. It's like you do see like the names of the PC players, but you can't like invite them directly. And but it pretty much just works through the game on its own. Um, so yeah, I guess that's true. But as far as like the Minecraft, yeah, like Microsoft are the ones stopping that from happening, for sure. Aside from,
Well,
like just by that alone, but also I think Sony just doesn't want to do it in general. Like they don't really need to.
I wouldn't be surprised if Sony is bitter because I believe they wanted to do it last gen, and Microsoft said no
Well,
because Microsoft was winning, quote unquote.
I don't know if I don't remember Sony ever wanting to do it with Xbox, but I do know that they did it with PC last gen, which is why actually Dust 514 ended up being PS3 exclusive because, well, in addition to PC, because Xbox refused to do cross platform play. Um, I think there were some other games that was the story too. And it's funny because like this gen, like Microsoft keeps talking about cross-platform play as if they're the ones who invented it and did it first, when in reality they were the ones who were saying no last gen to developers that just wanted to do it between PC and Xbox. Now all of a sudden they change the tune and like think that they can pretend like it was their idea and it wasn't. But I mean, I
Hypocrisy
guess
and
they'll do
bullshit.
whatever they need to try to market their products because they're not winning as much as Sony is right now, to quote Charlie Sheen. But
Yeah. Um, let's see. Well, I can just blaze through the last couple things I have. Again, I buy a lot
yeah,
of things day one because I'm more okay with buying certain games and then if they're disc-based games, like selling them or something like that and getting some cash for it and putting that towards the next game. It's
yeah, I don't do
one of the
that.
better. Well, it's one of the ways that I can even get some of these games and Amiibo across multiple consoles because my wife yells at me. Um, but real quick, I skipped it because it was at the top of my list. Because again, I've come back to it and have gotten some trophies in it. But I got Final Fantasy 12 day one when it came out. One because it came with a steelbook if you bought it
Hmm.
day-ish one, and I'm a get a big heart on for them steelbooks. And two, I loved the game, so I wanted to play it again. I pre-ordered South Park, and I just got it today. I haven't put any time into it yet
Yeah, 'cause
because
didn't you buy it like a long ass time ago on the PlayStation Store and got the remake of the first one
so
as a pre-order bonus, right?
yes, yes, I got it.
So you only had to wait a year and a half about, but it's
Yeah.
here.
So yeah, it's been sitting, and I haven't really touched it, but because I wanted to finish Final Fantasy before jumping into another RPG. But again, I loved the first game, absolutely loved it, so of course I want to play it. And support them, that studio, and support the game, and tell them I want more games like this because the first South Park was great. I've been hearing excellent things about this South Park, so why wouldn't I want more South Park RPGs? That sounds amazing. Um, I have Final Fantasy. I have Mario pre-ordered, Super Mario Odyssey for next
Of
week,
course.
and of course, absolutely. Um, Again, like I said with Zelda, it's a Nintendo game. It's a Mario game. Who doesn't fucking love Mario?
On the same
Especially
day, what's it called? Assassin's
Wolfenstein
Creed's
and
coming out.
Assassin's Creed.
Are
Yep,
you ordering, pre-ordering Assassin's Creed?
I did pre-order Assassin's Creed a long time ago. Um, Again, I actually like the Assassin's Creed games. I like what they've been doing. Um, where you and me differ on a lot on Assassin's Creed quite a bit, where you prefer the story and I just prefer storyless, collectible, running around the open world doing shit gameplay. Um, so I'm pretty excited for it. But it's another open world game, so I might be a little cold on it right away. We'll see. Doesn't mean
Yeah.
I don't want to support Ubisoft because people shit on Ubisoft a whole lot, but I mean compared to Activision and EA, they're a lot better of a studio.
Yeah. Yeah. At the same time, though, they used to be much better.
They they are definitely going down a certain path and following certain trends, but
And actually,
um,
they're pushing the always online thing more than even EA is. So that's another. No, that's the probably my biggest problem with them at the moment. Um,
I don't really mind that too much, actually. Uh, they aren't doing loot boxes yet, though, so that's good.
I'd rather have loot boxes and pay to win than always online.
No, I don't really care about
To me, there's
always
nothing
online.
worse than turning a $60 purchase into a rental, which is
Well,
what always online is.
always online is kind of a lot of their games aren't actually always online. I mean, Assassin's Creed will be playable offline. Ghost Recon
Oh yeah,
is fully playable
that will,
offline.
yeah.
Um,
I think that was actually because the studio wanted it to be that way because I mean it's very Division-like, and the Division was always online. The Crew 2 is always online again, despite people hating it in the first game, and because it didn't need to be. Um, yeah, what else? I don't know, but
But that's
they are
I think
definitely
that's pretty
pushing
much
it
it.
more than EA is. And like, I mean, for example, like Need for Speed that came out in 2015 was always online. People lambasted it for it, and now Need for Speed Payback is removing that, like, which is a smart move, because like people generally don't like it, and then some people like me absolutely despise it, just because what it represents as far as the value of a purchase and the power that the publishers have over you, and I just don't like it. Like to me, like the fact that they can shut that stuff down whenever they want, I have a big problem with that. Like especially with the Crew 2 coming out, like I'm interested to see how they handle the running of the Crew 1 servers.
They will keep them up for as long as people are playing the game, and it doesn't cost them.
I'd be surprised if they did, to be honest. Like,
Well,
I think it would be
Assassin,
amount of if a lot of people are playing, they'll keep it going. But if I could see them also just shutting it down just to kind of encourage people to buy the next one. And I'm wondering what Activision's plan as far as Destiny is. Although I will give Activision credit, as far as like Call of Duty, they do not shut servers down for that ever. And it is partly because it's peer-to-peer based, but there is also matchmaking servers that they do have to pay to run, and they're not shutting them down. Like every Call of Duty game, I think even all the way back to the first one, the multiplayer servers are still up and running. So
well, they have, I believe, the Assassin's Creed Black Flag multiplayer servers are still up for PS3 and
didn't they shut something
PS4.
down as far as Assassin's Creed servers or something? I don't
They might
remember.
have done like Assassin's Creed 2 on from old gen or something like that. I don't remember, but even a Assassin's Creed game from
For some
2013
reason, I thought it was
is
Unity
no, Unity is still going because it's so co-op based. So
or like some part of it. I don't know. Um,
if that's still running, then the crew is probably good for a couple of years.
hope so. It does seem to me like that would be a bit harder to upkeep though, like the crew, as far as the server costs
Well,
than
I
Assassin's Creed, because that's like kind of on-demand thing. You're either playing offline on online or you're not. So might be a little different than an always online game, but I think like really they should keep it online forever, in my opinion. Like just because that hey, a game that isn't always online you can play forever. So, but yeah, they'll never do that. It sucks, but that's why I don't like always online games.
and I don't mind them. Nothing lasts forever, and in 10 years, if they shut down World of Warcraft, I won't. I'll be sad, but I don't think I will sit there and cry about the fact. Not that I'm saying you're crying, but um, cry about the fact that I've spent thousands of dollars on a game that's literally going up in smoke in front of my very eyes,
Yeah, that
which
would
it
piss
will
me
happen
off.
one day. Well, again, as someone who's played MMOs for years, it's one of the things that you come to terms with pretty quickly. You put money into a game that won't last forever. With a
I mean,
single
it just
player
seems
game
crazy
that
to me
you can
because
play
like
under.
occasionally I still go and play like very like PS1 games. Like I have had some installed on my Vita and stuff, and it's like those are 20-year-old games, and no, there's no like I mean you say nothing lasts forever, but stuff like that probably will. I mean as long as your hardware still works, and the hardware still supports that stuff.
Well,
Like
there's going to be one day where, I don't know,
I mean I can
it's
still play
entirely
Doom on
possible
my
that.
computer. Like it can still. I mean I'm sure like wicked old games you can still play somehow as well. And especially like the PC scene as far as like emulating stuff and stuff like that. So it's like most games last forever, always online games are the exception. And like the main problem for me is that it's not an MMO. Like these are games that don't need to be always online. That's maybe the biggest problem. Like I could understand them shutting down the World of Warcraft someday, but something like the Crew, that in 2006 when it was called Test Drive Unlimited, wasn't always online. It did the exact same things as far as like online and gameplay functionality. Wasn't always online. Like there's just no need for the Crew to be. And then the same goes
Wasn't
for
the point of the
the,
crew to
the
play
Division.
with other players?
No, there's like a full single player. You can play the Crew for like hundreds of hours without ever playing with anyone else. Like you'll see other people on the road as you drive around, but no, it is absolutely not the point of the Crew. No.
Well, the division is kind of weird. It's got a
It's like you
mostly
can play it
single
all
player
solo.
thing.
So.
You can't though. There are
Mm,
dungeons, the equivalent of dungeons that you need a group of people to do, and then the end game stuff you need a
okay.
group of people to do. And I mean, it's to me that's very MMO like in its approach. The only difference is instead of a game like Final Fantasy or World of Warcraft where you see these people around you as you're doing your quests and leveling and going through the story, in the Division you don't until you're doing a dungeon or until you get to the end game zone or you're in a hub area. And then you run into other people. But if you're out there in the open world, then you don't, and you're by yourself. Whereas in Final Fantasy, a lot of those things are similar, but there's a much higher chance of you seeing people out in the open world. So again, it's from your perspective, I can see where it shouldn't be online only. From my perspective, it's another little MMO type of game where it makes perfect sense why it's online. And the impression that I always got from the Crew was a similar approach, just with cars.
No, I
And
mean
instead of
it's
dungeons and
literally
endgame with races.
it's literally no different than Test Drive Unlimited. Like the
I
majority of it is single
don't really know
player.
Test Drive Unlimited though.
Well, yeah, but I'm just like using that example because it's basically the same thing, but it's from 2006 and does the same exact things functionality wise. So I mean that's proof positive that it doesn't need to be always online because the servers for Test Drive Unlimited have been off for several years, and basically you can do multiplayer races with people. You can, well, in the Crew you can also do single player races, which is interesting. Um, but yeah, like basically the setup is the exact same. Like you'll see random cars driving around as you're going through the open world, and unless you're doing a single player race, but it's basically set up the exact same way. And like there is a huge amount of single player content, which is why like I still play Test Drive Unlimited, although the I've actually never played online with it. Um, I have the second one, like because those servers were still up, but the first one has the same basic setup as both the Test Drive Unlimited 2 and the Crew, and it never was always online. Like it just doesn't need to be. Like I don't know why Ubisoft decided to force that on there, but they did, and it's worked for it. And it's disappointing because I actually think that the Crew 2 looks pretty cool. Like adding planes and stuff, and the Crew 1 is pretty cool. Although it could have been better, um, just because the car handling is too generic. The cars don't feel unique to each other. Like a truck just feels like a heavier, slower version of a sports car. Really, it's and that's not what you could say about the first Test Drive Unlimited, which was like it was not a simulation game, but it had a lot of characteristics of one. It was just an absolute blast today, and it still is. Like to me, it's still arguably better than Forza Horizon 3, which says a lot because that's like the ultimate in modern open world racer. But yeah, enough about that. Back to the topic. What else do we have? Did you mention all your pre-orders?
Um, I oh, I also have Far Cry or Pokemon pre-ordered. Again, harping on the same thing. I love the series, and it's a Nintendo game, so it'll come out incredibly high quality. So of course I'm gonna get it, like I do every Pokemon all the time. because I love Pokemon games.
Sweet.
I bought Mario Kart Splatoon day one as well on Switch. Stardew Valley, I bought day one on Switch, even though I bought it day one on PS4 earlier this year or late last year. I don't remember which. And PC not day one, but PC later in the year last year. Because, you know, I will show that guy that I love his game and I will buy it over and over and over again. Plus, plus Stardew Valley on Switch is just an amazing combination. And I have Nino Kuni pre-ordered, but that's next year. But I love the first one so much that of course I'm going to get the second one. There's no question about that.
Yeah, like next year, I know I'm gonna get God of War, Days Gone, and Detroit Day
Hmm.
One. And
God of War is
if
going to
there
be day one.
is a collector's edition, definitely Shadow of the Colossus. I will absolutely get a collector's edition for that. So hopefully they make one. But yeah, that's about it so far. But I think we've covered it pretty thoroughly. You wanna
Yeah, I
wrap it
think
up?
so. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. Peace out.